Houston, Texas, the energy capital of the world, a sprawling metropolis where oil tycoons built fortunes, where NASA launched humanity to the stars, and where more than 145 languages echo through neighborhoods that span the globe. But hidden within the fabric of this city lies a story that few have ever told. The remarkable Filipino-Americans whose paths crossed through Houston on their way to building some of the greatest fortunes in modern history. With over 20,000 Filipino residents, the largest concentration in the state of Texas, Houston has long served as a gateway for Filipino families chasing the American dream. In Sugar Land and Fort Bend County, you'll find thriving communities where Tagalog fills the air at weekend gatherings, where Jollibee restaurants serve thousands of customers daily craving a taste of home, and where Filipino entrepreneurs have quietly built businesses that span generations. But this isn't just a story about a community. This is a story about individuals who defied every odd, who transformed humble beginnings into billion-dollar empires, and whose connections to Houston, whether through childhood memories, family businesses, or strategic expansions, reveal the surprising ways this city has shaped Filipino success in America. Today, we're counting down the wealthiest Filipino-Americans with ties to Houston. You'll meet a tech titan whose mother immigrated from the Philippines and whose quiet genius helped create an app used by billions. You'll discover the immigrant lawyer who became the first Asian woman to pass the New York bar and went on to run a billion-dollar food empire. You'll learn about the barefoot farm boy from Cagayan, who grew up to invent the technology inside every computer you've ever used. And perhaps most remarkably, you'll hear the story of a young Filipino woman whose family opened one of Houston's first Asian grocery stores in 1977. A 7-year-old girl who answered phone calls for customers because her parents barely spoke English, who went on to become one of only 22 women in history to take a company public. These are not just success stories. These are testaments to the Filipino spirit, the resilience, the ingenuity, the unwavering belief that hard work and sacrifice can transform destiny itself. From Manila to Houston to the heights of American business, these are the richest Filipino families with connections to the Bayou City. Let's begin. In 2013, something unusual happened outside a fast food restaurant near NRG Park in Houston, Texas. Customers lined up for hours. Not dozens of people, hundreds. At its peak, the restaurant served 1,500 customers in a single day. They were not waiting for burgers from a famous American chain. They were waiting for fried chicken from the Philippines. The restaurant was Jollibee, and its arrival in Houston marked a turning point in Filipino-American business history. Behind this empire stands Tony Tan Caktiong, a man whose journey from dishwasher to billionaire reads like fiction, but is entirely, remarkably real. Tony was born in 1953 in Davao, on the southern Philippine island of Mindanao. His parents were Chinese immigrants from Fujian province who had crossed the sea seeking opportunity. His father found work as a cook in a Buddhist monastery before eventually opening a small restaurant. Young Tony learned the business from the ground up. Literally, he washed dishes, he cleared tables, he watched his father work 18-hour days and absorbed lessons about service, quality, and sacrifice that no business school could teach. In 1975, at just 22 years old, Tony opened an ice cream parlor in Quezon City. Customers loved the ice cream, but they kept asking for something more. They wanted hot food. So Tony added hamburgers, French fries, and fried chicken to the menu. He named his creation Jollibee, combining joy with the hard-working bee. The name was unusual. Banks refused to lend him money because they thought it was too strange. Tony pressed forward anyway. Then came the real test. In 1981, McDonald's entered the Philippines with all the force of a global juggernaut. Industry observers told Tony to sell immediately. He would be crushed, they warned. The American giant would destroy his little bee. But Tony understood something the experts missed. Filipino tastes were different. Filipinos wanted sweeter spaghetti with chunks of hot dog. They wanted crispier, juicier fried chicken. They wanted flavors that reminded them of home. Tony bet everything on that insight. He developed recipes specifically for Filipino palates. He created Chicken Joy, fried chicken so crispy and flavorful that it became a national obsession. The result defied every prediction. Jollibee did not merely survive McDonald's entrance, it dominated. Today, Jollibee outsells McDonald's in the Philippines by a factor of 2. The empire has grown to over 9,000 stores across 32 countries. Tony's company owns 19 brands, including Chowking, Greenwich Pizza, Red Ribbon, and Mang Inasal. His net worth stands at $1.3 billion, and Houston has become central to his American ambitions. The company now operates multiple locations across the Houston metropolitan area and has announced plans for over 100 Texas locations. Houston's Filipino community, the largest in the state, provides a loyal foundation while introducing mainstream Americans to the flavors that conquered a nation. Tony Tan Caktiong built his billions by understanding that food is memory, that taste is identity, that a humble fried chicken restaurant could become an empire if it served something deeper than calories. But our next entry is someone who served something deeper still. She served justice, broke barriers, and ultimately commanded a billion-dollar corporation that most Americans have never heard of. Her name is Loida Nicholas Lewis, and in 1974, she accomplished something no Asian had ever done before. She passed the New York State bar examination without attending a single day of American law school. Loida was born in 1942 in Sorsogon City, a coastal town in the Bicol region of the Philippines. Her father Francisco was an entrepreneur who built a cinema and named it after his daughter, hoping she would one day become mayor. Loida had different ambitions. She enrolled at the University of the Philippines College of Law and graduated 7th in her class in 1967. She passed the Philippine bar examination and could have built a comfortable career in Manila. Instead, she traveled to New York City, where destiny waited in an unexpected form. In 1968, Loida went on a blind date with a young African-American lawyer named Reginald Lewis. They married in Manila the following year. 6 years later, Loida achieved the impossible. She passed the New York bar exam without ever studying American law, becoming the first Asian woman to accomplish this feat. She had simply studied American legal textbooks on her own and proved that brilliance transcends borders. While Loida built her legal career, Reginald was building something historic. In 1987, he acquired Beatrice International Foods in a $985 million leveraged buyout. It became the largest African-American-owned company in United States history. The couple seemed destined for decades of shared success. Then, tragedy struck. In January 1993, Reginald Lewis died of brain cancer. He was 50 years old. Loida was devastated, but she was also her husband's most trusted advisor. After 1 year of mourning, she made a decision that stunned Wall Street. She would run the company herself. Her first actions revealed her character. She sold the corporate jet. She sold the limousines. She moved from a luxury Manhattan suite to a modest office. She was not interested in symbols of power. She was interested in results. Under her leadership, TLC Beatrice International generated $2 billion in annual revenue. Working Woman magazine named her the top businesswoman in America in 1995. By 2000, she had strategically liquidated the company's assets exactly as her late husband would have wanted. Today, Loida chairs the Reginald F. Lewis Foundation and continues advocating for Filipino-Americans through organizations she co-founded, including the National Federation of Filipino-American Associations. Her work has touched Filipino communities across America, including the 20,000 Filipinos who call Houston home. Loida Nicholas Lewis proved that a Filipino immigrant could master American law and American business at the highest levels. But our next entry mastered something even more fundamental. He invented the technology that makes every computer on Earth actually function. His name is Diosdado Banatao. They called him the Bill Gates of the Philippines, though he never sought the comparison. He was born in 1946 in Iguig, a farming town in Cagayan province. His father, Salvador, grew rice. His mother, Rosita, kept house. Young Dado walked barefoot on dirt roads to reach elementary school. He worked as an altar boy to pay for tuition at Ateneo de Tuguegarao. Nothing in his childhood suggested he would one day be worth billions. Before 2018, if you wanted authentic Filipino food in Houston, your options were painfully limited. A buffet here, a small cafe there, and of course, Jollibee near NRG Park. For a city with over 20,000 Filipino residents, the largest concentration in Texas, this was a culinary desert. Houstonians who craved the flavors of Manila, the sizzling sisig and crispy lechon kawali, the kare-kare and sinigang that reminded them of grandmother's kitchen, had to cook at home or drive for hours. Then, one family decided to change everything. In February 2018, Suzette Gariel and her family opened the doors of Jerry's Grill in Houston's Asiatown district. The restaurant was part of an international chain with over 200 locations worldwide, famous across the Philippines for grilled seafood and classic Filipino dishes. But bringing the brand to Houston was a gamble. Filipino cuisine had never achieved the mainstream recognition of Chinese or Japanese or Thai food in America. Would Houston embrace it? The answer came immediately and emphatically. Filipinos who had lived in Houston for decades finally had a destination. Families drove from Sugar Land and Fort Bend County, from Katy and the Woodlands, converging on Asiatown to taste something they had been missing for years. The restaurant became more than a business. It became a gathering place, a piece of home transplanted to Texas soil. Suzette Gariel understood both the opportunity and the challenge. Filipino food, as good as it is, remains relatively unknown to mainstream American diners. The big Filipino chefs and food experts in America are still working to penetrate the market, still trying to achieve the recognition that other Asian cuisines take for granted. Jerry's Grill Houston became part of that mission, introducing non-Filipino customers to dishes they had never encountered, building bridges between cultures one plate at a time. The success of Jerry's Grill triggered something remarkable. Within months, other Filipino businesses began clustering around it. Red Ribbon Bakery opened nearby, offering the purple oob cakes and sweet ensaymada pastries that Filipinos crave for celebrations. Cherry Foodorama established a grocery store stocking ingredients impossible to find elsewhere in Houston. Max's Restaurant, another legendary Filipino chain with over 200 international locations, planted its flag in the same neighborhood. Yellow Cab Pizza followed. By 2023, the transformation was complete. Seafood City Supermarket, the Filipino equivalent of Costco, opened a massive Houston location. The Asiatown corridor had become a Filipino food destination, rivaling anything in Los Angeles or San Francisco. Texas Highways magazine took notice, declaring that Filipino food was on the rise in Houston and observing that the highest population of Filipinos in Texas reside in the city. The Gariel family did not merely open a restaurant. They ignited a movement. They proved that Houston was ready for Filipino cuisine, that the market existed not just among homesick immigrants, but among adventurous eaters of every background. Their success created a template for Filipino culinary expansion in American secondary markets, demonstrating that you did not need to be in California or New York to build a thriving Filipino food business. This is how communities grow. One family takes a risk. Others follow. Soon, a scattered diaspora becomes a visible, vibrant presence. The Filipino Food Corridor in Houston's Asiatown stands as testament to what happens when entrepreneurs believe in their culture enough to share it. But while the Guerriels were building their Houston legacy in 2018, another Filipino success story had already proven something even more profound about the city's influence. Decades earlier, a 7-year-old girl had learned the fundamentals of business in a Houston strip mall, answering phones for customers because her immigrant parents barely spoke English. That little girl would grow up to become one of only 22 women in American history to take a company public. Her name is Sheila Lirio Marcelo, and her story begins not in Silicon Valley or Wall Street, but in a small grocery store in Houston, Texas. Sheila was born in Manila, the second youngest of 6 siblings in a family that breathed entrepreneurship. Her parents, Dario and Amelia Lirio, were serial business owners in the Philippines. They ran coconut mills and mango plantations. They operated banana farms and trucking companies. They raised chickens and pigs and produced coal. Business was not something the Lirio family did. It was who they were. In 1977, the family made a decision that would shape Sheila's destiny. Her father had become interested in extracting oil from coconut husks to convert into energy. An American family who had visited their small Philippine town suggested they come to Houston to research the technology. So the Lirios packed up and moved to Texas, opening one of Houston's first Asian grocery stores and restaurants. Sheila was 7 years old. She spoke fluent English. Her parents did not. So when the telephone rang, little Sheila answered. She took orders. She relayed messages. She became the communication bridge between her immigrant family and their American customers. She was learning business at its most fundamental level, watching her parents hustle and sacrifice and adapt in a foreign country where everything was unfamiliar except the universal language of hard work. The family stayed in Houston for 3 years before returning to the Philippines. But those years left an indelible mark. Decades later, Sheila would tell Harvard Business School that she had always enjoyed the way business gets conducted, the scrappiness with which her parents managed their different enterprises. That scrappiness, learned in a Houston strip mall, would carry her further than anyone could have imagined. From Houston, Sheila's path wound through elite institutions. Mount Holyoke College, where she graduated magna cum laude in economics. Harvard Law School and Harvard Business School, where she earned a joint JD and MBA. But her journey was never conventional. She got pregnant during her sophomore year of college and married her boyfriend of just 3 months. She had her second child immediately after completing her MBA. She built her career while raising a family, refusing to accept that motherhood and ambition were mutually exclusive. Then came the crisis that changed everything. Her father suffered a heart attack while carrying her baby up a flight of stairs. Suddenly, Sheila needed care for her children and care for her aging parents simultaneously. She searched desperately for help and discovered that finding quality caregivers was maddeningly difficult. The Yellow Pages offered no solutions. The internet offered fragmented options. A billion-dollar idea was taking shape. He has been called the billion-dollar monk and the ghost co-founder. His Twitter account exists but has never posted a single tweet. He grants almost no interviews and avoids cameras with the determination of a man who genuinely does not want to be seen. Yet this quiet, almost invisible figure built the technological foundation for an application that 400 million people use every single day. His name is Bobby Murphy, and he is the richest Filipino-American who has ever lived. Bobby was born on July 19, 1988, in Berkeley, California. His mother, Rosie Go Murphy, had immigrated from the Philippines in the early 1980s, crossing the Pacific with dreams that would take a generation to fully realize. She met Richard Murphy Jr., a man of Irish, Scottish, and English descent, and together they built a modest life. Both parents worked as California state employees. There was no family fortune, no venture capital connections, no silver spoon, just two working-class parents who valued education and raised their son to believe that intelligence and effort could unlock any door. Bobby attended private Catholic schools in Berkeley, environments that emphasized discipline and academic rigor. He excelled in mathematics and computing from an early age, displaying the quiet brilliance that would later make him legendary in Silicon Valley. When it came time for college, he enrolled at Stanford University, choosing to major in mathematical and computational science, a program that fused rigorous mathematical theory with practical computer science applications. It was the perfect training ground for what was to come. At Stanford, Bobby joined the Kappa Sigma fraternity, where he met a fellow student named Evan Spiegel. The two bonded over a shared experience that shaped both of them. They were not cool. In the social hierarchy of Stanford, they existed on the margins, brilliant but awkward, ambitious but overlooked. Years later, Bobby would tell Forbes magazine that they tried to build things to be cool. It was a simple statement that concealed a profound truth. Sometimes the greatest innovations come from those who feel they have something to prove. In 2011, a Stanford classmate named Reggie Brown approached Evan with an idea. What if photographs could disappear after being viewed? What if communication could be temporary, fleeting, free from the permanent record that haunted every other social media platform? Evan brought the concept to Bobby, who possessed the technical skills to transform theory into reality. Bobby wrote the code. They called the application Peekaboo and launched it that September. Within months, they had renamed it Snapchat, and the world would never be the same. The application exploded in popularity, particularly among young users who craved authentic, unpolished communication. Bobby led the engineering and product teams, constantly refining the technology, while Evan became the public face of the company. It was a partnership built on complementary strengths. Evan handled media and vision. Bobby handled everything else. In 2013, Mark Zuckerberg came calling. Facebook offered $3 billion to acquire Snapchat. For two young men still in their 20s, the sum was almost incomprehensible. They could have taken the money and retired as legends. Instead, Bobby and Evan said no. They believed Snapchat was worth more. They believed they were just getting started. History proved them spectacularly correct. In March 2017, Snap Incorporated went public with a valuation of $33 billion. Bobby and Evan held 45% of the company's stock and 70% of its voting power. At 28 years old, Bobby Murphy became the second youngest billionaire in the world. Time magazine named him one of the 100 most influential people on the planet. Forbes tracked his every financial move. The boy who was not cool had built one of the coolest companies in existence. Today, Bobby's net worth fluctuates between $2 and $2.4 billion, depending on Snap's stock price. He continues leading the company's engineering, product, and research teams, including the Snap Labs division that develops Spectacles camera glasses. He has donated generously to Stanford's first-generation and low-income Student Success Center, ensuring that students from backgrounds like his mother's have opportunities to succeed. He supports Gold House, an organization celebrating Asian Pacific leaders in technology and entertainment. He does all of this quietly, without fanfare, without seeking credit. In Houston, millions of residents use Snapchat every day, without knowing that a Filipino-American built it. For the city's 20,000 Filipino community members, Bobby Murphy represents something profound. He is proof that Filipino brilliance can reach the absolute pinnacle of American technology and wealth. He is the invisible billionaire whose Filipino heritage connects him to every Snapchat user in every Houston high school and university, every young professional sharing moments with friends, every parent keeping up with children who communicate in disappearing images. Bobby Murphy built his fortune by staying silent while his creation spoke for itself. But our next entry operated in the opposite manner entirely. She became one of the most visible Filipino-American leaders in corporate history, taking command of a $2 billion multinational corporation at a moment when no one expected her to succeed. Her name is Loida Nicholas Lewis, and we introduced her earlier in our countdown. But her full story demands deeper examination, because what she accomplished after tragedy struck represents one of the most remarkable corporate turnarounds ever led by a Filipino-American. When Reginald Lewis died of brain cancer in January 1993, he left behind TLC Beatrice International, the largest African-American-owned company in American history. He also left behind a widow whom Wall Street systematically underestimated. Loida Nicholas Lewis was an immigrant from Sorsogon, a lawyer who had passed the New York bar without American legal education, an advisor who had worked alongside her husband for decades. She was not a corporate executive. She was not a food industry veteran. She was, in the eyes of many observers, simply the grieving widow who would soon sell the company and disappear. Loida had other plans. After 1 year of mourning, she assumed the role of Chief Executive Officer and Chair of TLC Beatrice International. The company operated across Europe, distributing food products in France, Spain, and markets throughout the continent. Annual revenues approached $2 billion. The challenges were immense. The skepticism was universal. The Filipino immigrant lawyer was now running a multinational food empire. Her first decisions revealed a philosophy that would define her tenure. She sold the corporate jet that executives considered essential. She eliminated the limousines that signaled status. She abandoned the luxurious Manhattan office suite and moved operations to a modest space where work, not appearance, mattered. She was not interested in performing wealth. She was interested in creating it. Every oil pipeline monitor in Houston, every refinery control system tracking the flow of petroleum through the energy capital of the world, every computer in every corporate office managing billions of dollars in fossil fuel infrastructure. They all run on technology invented by a man who once walked barefoot on dirt roads to reach elementary school. Diosdado Banatao, known to everyone as Dado, was born on May 23, 1946, in the farming town of Iguig in Cagayan Province. His father Salvador cultivated rice. His mother Rosita kept house. There was no electricity in their home, no running water, no indication whatsoever that this child would grow up to transform the global computer industry. Dado worked as an altar boy at the local church to pay his tuition at Ateneo de Tuguegarao. He walked those dirt roads without shoes because his family could not afford them. Poverty was not an obstacle he overcame. It was the crucible that forged him. He graduated cum laude in electrical engineering from Mapua Institute of Technology in Manila, then joined Philippine Airlines as a trainee pilot before moving to Boeing as a design engineer. While working at Boeing, he earned his master's degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Stanford University. During those years, he joined the Homebrew Computer Club, where he encountered two young entrepreneurs named Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. The personal computer revolution was beginning, and Dado positioned himself at its absolute center. What followed was a cascade of inventions that fundamentally shaped modern computing. He developed the first single-chip 16-bit microprocessor-based calculator while at Commodore in 1976. He created the first 10-megabit Ethernet CMOS chip while at Seek Technology in the early 1980s. Most significantly, he invented the first system logic chipset for the IBM PC/XT and PC/AT while at Chips and Technologies in 1985. He looked at computers that required 150 chips and redesigned them to function with just 5. That single innovation made personal computers smaller, more portable, and affordable for ordinary families. He founded 3 successful technology companies: Mostron in 1984, Chips and Technologies in 1985, which Intel later acquired for $300 million. S3 Graphics in 1989, which pioneered GUI accelerator chips that made Windows actually usable. In 2000, he established Tallwood Venture Capital with $300 million of his own money, investing in the next generation of technology startups. Forbes placed him on their Midas list of top technology investors. The Philippine government named him the country's first special envoy of science and technology. He received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor for his contributions to America. But Dato never forgot where he came from. Through the Philippine Development Foundation and the Dato Banatao Educational Foundation, he funded scholarships for Filipino engineering students. He built a computer center at his elementary school in Iguig, transforming the humble institution where he once studied into the only public school in the Philippines with a modern computer network. He spent his final years trying to prove that the Philippines could become a technology innovator rather than merely an exporter of labor. On December 25, 2025, Dato Banatao passed away peacefully on the campus of Stanford University after battling a neurological disorder. He was 79 years old. His legacy lives in every computer on Earth, including the ones powering Houston's entire energy sector. The barefoot boy from Cagayan had changed the world. Dato Banatao proved that Filipino brilliance could reshape entire industries. But our second-ranked entry has a Houston connection even more direct, more personal, more formative. She did not merely impact Houston from afar. She grew up there, learned business there, and carried those lessons to the pinnacle of American entrepreneurship. Sheila Lirio Marcelo arrived in Houston in 1977 as a 7-year-old girl who spoke better English than her immigrant parents. Her father, Dario, had come to research coconut oil energy conversion technology. Her mother, Amelia, supported the family's latest entrepreneurial venture. They opened one of Houston's first Asian grocery stores and restaurants in a strip mall that probably no longer exists. But what happened inside that store shaped everything that followed. When the telephone rang, Sheila answered. Her parents could not communicate fluently with American customers, so their second youngest daughter became the family's voice. She took orders, relayed messages, solved problems. She watched her parents work with the scrappiness that immigrant entrepreneurs know intimately, adapting constantly, refusing to quit. Those Houston years planted seeds that would bloom decades later. From Houston, her path wound through Mount Holyoke College, where she graduated magna cum laude while pregnant with her first child. Through Harvard Law School and Harvard Business School, where she earned joint degrees while raising a family. Through corporate positions that taught her technology and leadership. Then her father suffered a heart attack while carrying her baby, and Sheila confronted the impossible challenge of finding care for both her children and her aging parent. In 2006, she founded Care.com, an online marketplace connecting families with caregivers. The platform grew into something massive, serving millions of users seeking childcare, elder care, pet care, and household help. In 2014, Sheila took Care.com public, becoming one of only 22 women in American history to found a company and lead it through an initial public offering. In 2019, she sold the company to IAC for $500 million. Her mother's words echo still. Sheila had entered the business where the number one source of caregivers in the world is the Philippines. She had built a platform that connected her own countrymen with American families who needed them. The girl who answered phones in Houston had created something that employed thousands of Filipinos. Which brings us to the summit of our countdown, the richest Filipino-American who has ever lived. A man whose mother immigrated from the Philippines with nothing and whose son became a billionaire before turning 30. A technological genius so private that he has never posted a single tweet, yet whose creation reaches 400 million people daily. Bobby Murphy, co-founder of Snapchat, stands alone at number one. His mother Rosie crossed the Pacific in the early 1980s seeking opportunity. She founded in Berkeley, California, where she married Richard Murphy and raised a son who would achieve what no Filipino-American had achieved before. Bobby wrote the code that became Snapchat. He rejected $3 billion from Facebook because he believed in something greater. He took his company public at $33 billion and became the second youngest billionaire on Earth. Today, his net worth exceeds $2 billion. His Filipino heritage connects him to every user in Houston, every dreamer in the Filipino community, every child of immigrants who dares to believe that brilliance and persistence can conquer any obstacle. Bobby Murphy is the answer to a question that Filipino Americans have been asking for generations. How far can we go? The answer, it turns out, is all the way to the top. From a 7-year-old girl answering phones in a Houston strip mall to the richest Filipino American in history, these stories share something profound: the unshakable Filipino spirit. Think about what we've witnessed today. A farm boy who walked barefoot to school in Cagayan and grew up to invent the technology inside every computer on Earth. An immigrant lawyer who became the first Asian woman to pass the New York bar and later ran a $2 billion multinational corporation. A quiet Stanford student whose Filipino mother never imagined her son would become a tech billionaire. A young entrepreneur whose family's Houston grocery store taught her the hustle that would lead to a $500 million exit. Houston sits at the center of these stories in ways both obvious and subtle. It's the city where Sheila Marcello learned entrepreneurship from her immigrant parents. It's the market where Tony Tan Cactiong's Jollibee empire is aggressively expanding. It's the energy capital whose entire infrastructure runs on Dado Banatao's inventions. It's the community of 20,000 Filipinos who benefit from Loida Nicolas Lewis's advocacy and who use Bobby Murphy's Snapchat every single day. These connections matter because they reveal something essential. Filipino success in America is not isolated. It is networked. It flows through cities like Houston, through families who sacrificed everything for the next generation, through communities that support their own while reaching for something greater. The combined wealth represented in this countdown exceeds $10 billion. But the true value cannot be measured in dollars. It's measured in the Filipino nurses and engineers and entrepreneurs in Houston who see these stories and believe that they too can achieve the impossible. It's measured in the children of immigrants who now dream of Stanford and Harvard and Wall Street. Dado Banatao, who passed away this Christmas, left us with words worth remembering. Filipinos could be doing better in giving back, especially in giving back to where we come from. These Filipino Americans did exactly that. They built fortunes, yes, but more importantly, they built bridges between the Philippines and America, between Houston and the world, between the dreams of immigrants and the reality of generational success. That is the legacy of the richest Filipino families connected to Houston. And that legacy is still being written.